Welcome into today's LinkedIn Live. We're really excited today to bring on our special guest, Dr. Suzanne Solomon. This is actually a part two, a follow-up to a recent webinar that the ACMA, the Accreditation Council for Medical Affairs, we had on how to build a sustainable career with the pharmaceutical industry. We received a lot of inquiries, a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to during that webinar. So we thought it would be a great idea to have an interactive session today on LinkedIn, where we can help you with tips and tricks on how to build your expertise, how to build that sustainable career within the pharmaceutical industry. Again, today we are joined by Dr. Suzanne Solomon, who is a leader within the industry in helping women and other pharmacists and other doctorate level degree professionals enter and break into the industry, and again, build that career.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad. Now, today we will have a lot of insights from both of us on experiences that we have seen, we have experienced, and also helped other professionals break into the industry or promote themselves into a longer-term career. Throughout today's LinkedIn Live, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat. Again, today is meant to be an interactive session where we can answer your questions that you have had. All right, so in order for us to get started, I'd love to hear Dr. Suzanne Solomon's story into how she got to her seat today, how she helps other doctorate level professionals break into the industry.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Dixon, for the introduction and for everything. So I am a pharmacist by training, so my background is in pharmacy, and I did do a residency after I graduated, and I worked as a clinical pharmacist and as an assistant professor. And after presenting some research, I was recruited into pharma. I received a phone call, and I became an MSL at the time. And at the time, I really knew very little about the medical science liaison position. There wasn't much during my pharmacy school education. And to be honest, there's not a lot, I would say, for current pharmacists who are in school regarding pharmaceutical industry career. So for me, when I jumped in, it was very, very new and something that I wasn't so sure about. And then after a while, I worked there, and then I became a medical information manager as well there. And then I went back to academia. Back in, I was the assistant dean and an associate dean in academia, and then went back, and I really wanted to kind of couple my work in industry and my work in academia and with the two. And so what I did was I'm now the chief medical officer for the ACMA. And I have a lot of pharmacy students. I've been taking pharmacy students on rotations for my entire career. So I've been helping students, and through my platform on Instagram and my LinkedIn platform as well, I answer questions for those who are aspiring to go into the industry or to become an MSL.
Great. Now, you touched on a really important point that I wanted to highlight. That while you were completing your PharmD degree, that you didn't really have exposure into the industry. So how would you say you were able to build your expertise for that MSL role that you landed?
Great question. So I actually, at the time, I didn't really know about careers in pharma. I wasn't sure, and I just went into my clinical career, and really I became sort of an expert in the area. So I was working in cardiovascular. I had completed my residency, and I was more of an expert in that area, teaching in that area. And I also presented a poster and research area as well. So I kind of became an expert in that area. And I think that's helped me go into that area of cardiology within the pharmaceutical industry. So the important thing is to become an expert in some sort of area, and whether it's oncology, cardiology, hepatology, and that kind of will help you, on your career path as well.
So would you say one of those really primary steps in breaking into the industry is figuring out which therapeutic area?
Definitely. Yes, definitely. I think you should really know what therapeutic area you're interested in, what therapeutic area that you might be able to pivot into. So let's say you have one area, but then all of a sudden, that happens to a lot of us too, working in the industry, that the drug might not make it, or there's some sort of failure. You might have to pivot and go into a different area and do something else. So I think for me, I definitely recommend that everyone becomes an expert in a specific area, and I think that will help you when landing a position in industry.
I think that's really important as well. Some of the questions I get when I speak to some of those professionals, pharmacists, PhDs, when they're looking in ways of how to break into the industry, and we discuss therapeutic areas, one question commonly is, am I contained, or should I stick to the area that I'm the smartest in, right? And that's the easiest way, but you have to also think of where the pharmaceutical industry is, right? When we're looking at the pipeline of products within the pharmaceutical industry today, more than half of them are specialty products. So maybe begin shifting your view, shifting your vision into those specialty area therapeutic areas like oncology,
Right.
rheumatoid arthritis, right? These are those areas that are growing within the pharmaceutical industry. So because they are growing, they need professionals within those therapeutic areas, right? They are also continuously growing.
Definitely. I think that's important to study the area and to study industry in general and know what are the areas that are looking for what, oncology is constantly changing. So that's a great example. I think that's something that if you're not an expert in it, that potentially that could widen the opportunities for you if you become an expert in that area too.
And now, focus on therapeutic areas so far, but we also have to couple your knowledge and your expertise in therapeutic areas for the pharmaceutical industry with a skill set, right? Working in the pharmaceutical industry really relies on your ability to have a skilled set in particular examples such as communication, presentation skills, your speaking skills, right? These are those business acumen skills coupled with your therapeutic area knowledge that is very important. And you can work on these throughout your degree track, right? While you're in pharmacy school, but there are also other ways of how you can build those skill sets. How would you recommend, or what resources would you recommend to those who need a little bit of practice, or how they can build that skill set, those business acumen skills?
So I think you're right, because in pharmacy school, again, you might only have one business class, throughout your entire education, or if you're a physician, during your training, you don't have as much of that training. So I think the first thing is to where are you lacking, or what can you do? And I look at communication skills almost even in two buckets. I always say your oral communication and then your written communication. So can you write a blog? Can you get better? Can you post on LinkedIn? What are you able to do to improve yourself as well? So I think that's critical. And I think that the second thing is just practicing, being able to present at your current workplace, whether you're working in a hospital and presenting, or doing something else.
So I think this is a great pausing point, because throughout our conversation, we have a few questions already within the chat. So one question I see here is how a certificate could help with the lack of industry experience. How do employers consider a certificate?
So I think, again, want to beef up and strengthen your resume. So I always tell everyone there's two ways. First of all, if you're not getting an interview, then you need to strengthen your CV and resume. If you're getting the interview, then something is probably wrong with your interviewing skills if you're not getting the job. So there's two components to it. Mm-hmm. In order to have a resume and to improve yourself and make your resume look better, more education, training, certificates, certification, all of that is favored positively, that you care about the area. Is that the end all be all? No, you could be a pharmacist and you could not find a job as well, or you could be a physician and you might not be able to get a residency. So you might have the education, you still might not be able to get the job, but does it make your resume or CV look better than someone who doesn't have it? Definitely.
I agree. I think a certificate, whether you don't have industry experience or not, right, it helps you to stand out among those other applications that are in the pool. Right? See 200 applicants per MSL posting within medical affairs specifically. When you're against 199 other applicants, how can you make yourself stand out? And certificates and board certifications is a means. Let's see. Hi, I just started at BCMS. Great, congratulations. My interest is in patient education. Wondering, where do I start with my baseline internist field? Now, with patient education, this is one of those roles that a lot of people don't think about. So this is a great area for you to break into the industry with that BCMS program. Where do you start? I would recommend building up your network, right? You are already taking an extra step with the board certification and BCMAS. How else could you leverage that BCMAS certification? By discussing this with other patient education specialists, right? What skill sets do you need? What knowledge base do you need in order to succeed in that role?
Definitely.
What else could you also leverage if your therapeutic area is too niche and not something companies are actively hiring for often? That's a great question.
So yeah, so I think again, the business acumen, the other skills, communication, are you able to present? Do you take students? What are you doing currently? I think really, and then using your current position to leverage it. Are you active on LinkedIn? Are you active in the industry? Are you reading new articles that are coming out? You can become an expert in different areas and just by education and knowing the new medications that are coming out in that area. So it could be, when we say an expert in a specific therapeutic area, you don't necessarily need a board certification and fellowship train and residency trained in that specific area. However, it will definitely help you.
Yes. I will add on to that. Something that I've learned from Susie since working with her is you have to make yourself an expert. I hear her say this often. When you are looking to make yourself an expert, you are doing this by trying to set yourself up essentially as a thought leader, right? Like she mentioned, begin explaining more on LinkedIn, reaching out on LinkedIn. Can you find speaking engagements? Can you work as a freelance, right? And make yourself an expert so that others can see you and what work and the studying, the education that you are doing, those efforts.
Definitely. Interacting with others, again, networking is critical. So interacting with others, and networking doesn't have to be in-person networking. I would actually say a lot of networking can be right here, just on LinkedIn. That is definitely key to networking. Asking questions, attending events like this, they're all very, very critical.
We have a question in just sent from Sarah. I am a PharmD, soon finishing my master's degree in drug development and project management. I don't have any industry experience, and I would like to start at an entry-level position within medical affairs. What are your suggestions for me? That's a great question. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I think that you have to decide what area you're interested in. So are you interested in going to become an MSL? Are you interested in working medical information? I think you really want to determine what entry-level position you're most interested in. And then again, have your resume, CV ready so that you can obtain the interview. So the first step one is always getting the interview. And the only thing you can do is make your resume and CV polished and pretty. And then after that, we can talk about the interview and all the skills you need for that. But really, first is just obtain the interview.
Yes. I would say from my perspective of working with other students who are interested within the industry and they're looking for entry-level roles, first is to understand all the roles that are included within medical affairs. When you Google medical affairs, usually MSL roles will pop up. That's because MSLs are the most common role, the highest interest level within medical affairs, but there's also down the road, I would say, in journey of experience, right? There are plenty of roles within medical affairs that are more entry level and is a really great gate, right? That opens the door for you to roles. We're really taught in pharmacy school that there are specific roles like an MSL or retail or community pharmacist, and then we fit ourselves into that box. Usually what I tell our students is to figure out the skill sets that you are great in, right? Whether that's reading or in speaking, and then you find the role that best fits you. That's also a way of how you decrease burnout, later down the road.
Yeah, definitely. I love that because there are a lot of different areas. So you have to figure out what your strong suits are. And if it is medical information, are you interested in sales or marketing? Do you want to go down that road? And really pharmacovigilance or patient safety and looking at all of that, that's a completely different area, or managed care. So there are a lot of beginner areas or entry-level positions, but you have to determine which area you're going to go to and maybe don't shoot for the stars. I once had a student tell me, oh, I'm going to become, a medical director when I graduate. And I'm like, that is not how it works. Like, you don't just graduate and then you become a medical director. So I think it's critical to know what the entry-level positions are, where you might get in, and then from there you can pivot along to your path and your goal.
Now, So that answers your question, Sarah, here. But that brings me to another question. You highlighted the role of managed care, right? This is often a topic that is skipped over among PharmDs, MDs as well, those with clinical experience, even PhDs within the pharmaceutical industry. When we think of the pharmaceutical industry roles, oftentimes, again, research and development, medical affairs comes up. But we forget that third pillar within the industry, which is commercial. And within the commercial realm or pillar of the pharmaceutical industry, there are multiple fields, there are multiple roles with different responsibilities as well that you can pair with your clinical experience. And managed care is one of them. With managed care, these are where you are dealing with insurance plans and payer organizations. You're really increasing that access for patients. And I think this is a forgotten role among pharmacists and PhDs and MDs as well within the pharmaceutical industry. We need FRMs or field reimbursement managers. This is an increasing role when we're discussing the hot topic of drug pricing. With all eyes being on drug pricing and in the Inflation Reduction Act, for example, insurance policies, they are constantly changing. And so we need those professionals who are efficient and proficient in these policies, for example, that they can bring the insights back to the industry as well as to the patient.
And FRMs are the fastest growing field. So you're bringing up a great topic. So if you're not familiar with it, I think it's great that you're bringing that up, because a lot of times we're not thinking about these other roles. You're right. I think a lot of people know MSL and they know that term. And even MSL, it's not even called MSL at every company. So sometimes you have to search a different term, like medical scientist or just some other term. There's so many of them. I'm actually writing a book and it will be released in the next month on this topic, but there are so many names even to just search that you might not be familiar with.
Yeah. And if this is your first time hearing the term FRM or field reimbursement manager, no worries, right? ACMA is your place. Just like this LinkedIn Live, we have upcoming webinars. Really, we have one next month on the FRM role, what to expect in a day in the life. What are they looking for in pharmacists and PhD, MDs within these roles? So check out our website, look at our resources that we offer, because we offer a lot of certifications beyond certifications. Again, webinars, discussions and lives such as these are where you can learn more information.
Yeah, that was another question. Just the person actually agreed with us, saying that pharmacy schools talk a lot about industry roles and, what should pharmacists do or could they learn if they weren't taught in school. So one thing that we actually did at the ACMA is we've developed a MAC program. And there are many institutions now that have adapted it. So pharmacy schools are allowing students to obtain their credit while they're in school to get elective credit and complete the MAC certificate. But we also have a lot of other opportunities. So if you're interested in medical affairs, there's the BCMAS certification, there's PACS if you're interested in prior authorization and FRM positions. So there's a lot of ways. But like Kian mentioned, also just going onto a webinar like this, going on the website, reading new information that comes out is critical as well.
Yes. Now, in that MAC program, it's the Medical Affairs Competency Certificate Program. This is the program where we explain to pharmacy students that these are the minimum standards or minimum learning objectives that you should understand as a pharmacy student that's interested within medical affairs. So I would check out the outline, the program curriculum for that program to better understand what you should know, what you should understand as a pharmacy student.
Yes, definitely. And I think the other thing to note is that, someone has another question, but the other thing that's really important is when you are looking for a position in general is to think about your education, but really continue to propel yourself forward. So you're constantly learning throughout your career. You're not just learning, what you learned as a student. You have to continually learn. And while you're in pharma, you're going to continually learn new data, information. So it's critical to continue to study and upkeep with the industry. The industry is constantly changing. It's very different than math, for example. We all know 2 + 2 is 4, and that's never going to change. There's no new data coming out on, 2 + 2 being something different. So I remember one of my professors using that joke when I was in pharmacy school, and it's so true, where this is constantly changing. I mean, even the medications we're using for every disease state continually changes.
Yes. And this doesn't go to say, pharmacy school doesn't prepare you at all, right? The things and the gems, the nugget that you receive from pharmacy school and MD programs, PhD programs, these are things that set you apart from others who do not have that doctoral level degree or that clinical experience, right? You still will have to understand biostats, right? We have a full course in pharmacy school on biostats. This is still important within the industry, right? Understand the drug development process, biologics and biosimilars, differentiating particular products by mechanism of action or adverse events, right? Those gems are still required within the pharmaceutical industry. It's just that zoom in into the, again, business acumen skills, such as communication skills and how to use biostats is what changes. All right, so sorry, we have a few other questions that just came in. From Adam, it says, what are other certs MDs can go after to pursue a career in clinical development and operations? I currently have an MD, MBA, and looking to take my RAC soon. Now, for specific certifications, again, on our website on medicalaffairsspecialist.org, we actually have a program specifically for clinical development. I think this is a great starting place for you to understand clinical development from the perspective of the pharmaceutical industry and what skills, what knowledge bases, what things you should understand about clinical trials, for example, are really important in order to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, just researching it out there, but that's a great question. So this person wrote in, I do not have a PhD or a PharmD or an MD, but they are an RN and an MBA, and they have a master's in regulatory compliance and clinical trials. And their question is, what are the recommendations to market themselves? And they have 5+ years in clinical trials, but, I know we kind of touched on this, but if you have other recommendations.
Yes, so you're an RN, again, ACMA, we have more resources for you. We have the CMAP program. This is for nurses that are looking to enter into the medical affairs field. You have great experience. It sounds like if you have plenty of experience in clinical trial knowledge, regulatory, and compliance, you are a great fit for medical affairs. It's better, I think you may have to work forward to, again, that certification for nurses in medical affairs, but also how you communicate and translate the skills that you have in clinical development and how that would benefit the medical affairs role that you are interested in.
Yeah, great point. Also, for going back to the clinical research, the other that you can look into is the Association of Clinical Research Professionals. That's a good resource for clinical operations and clinical development in general. So if you're interested in that, I think that's important. We have other questions about just like what kind of titles to look for when looking for specific jobs. And I would say that there's a laundry list of titles. I actually could go, I think there's probably like 40 titles. And that's something that I touch on even in my book, because I think that a lot of us, again, we're looking at 1 or 2 titles and we're not looking at every single title. Even my position as a medical science liaison, my title was not medical science liaison, it was medical scientist. So I think it's important to know what they are. And, and to know if you're going to have a promotional position or a non-promotional position within the pharmaceutical industry, because that's also critical on how you're educating or working with others in the field as well.
Yes. I see. Now, her question on those jobs covering those areas, hers was specifically on medical writing. If you're in medical affairs, there is some type of writing component in just about all of them. But the one I would say with the most writing is medical communications, for example. I would start there with medical communications and then expand out to specific companies, right? There are CROs, CSOs, where pharma organizations hire writing organizations that specifically write their publications, right? I think this is a great starting place for you, as well as becoming a freelance writer, right? You can work for yourself as well in the industry.
And the other question, so if someone who's working in-house already, how do they become an MSL? I think you're actually at an advantage because you're already working in-house. You already have pharma experience. So now it's really turning your resume and turning your CV into something that the MSL hiring manager will want to interview you. Sometimes just looking internally at the same company you're at, and other times you could look somewhere else as well. And I think that's critical. For those of you, there was another person asking about a job in R&D. So medical affairs is the area that employs the most pharmacists. So as a pharmacist, that is typically the hottest, but there are positions in R&D that PharmDs can attain, especially if you have, as you mentioned, your master's degree as well.
Oh, this question that just came in is a really great question. They're a pharmacy student in a PharmD program. They say residency programs for more expertise in a specific therapeutic area, but would you also suggest fellowships to get into medical affairs?
So I did a residency and a fellowship, and I'm probably very rare. And I think just knowing this one stat, actually, only 20% of pharmacists in the industry did a residency or a fellowship. So 80%, we actually did a study, this was presented at HP, 80% of those who are in the industry who are a PharmD, they did not do a residency, they did not do a fellowship, they got into the industry. And I'll let Dr. Dixon talk about this because she actually landed a role without doing either one. And I think that she is the majority of pharmacists. So I actually, would love for her to share her story on that.
When we're thinking of breaking into the industry, there are three main routes, right? The first, most common, or it sounds like the most questionable one that comes in a lot, are fellowships, right? So that is one option. The second option is board certification, like we've mentioned before as well. And the third option is direct to industry roles, right? And that was my way into the industry, I would say. Within direct to industry roles, you leave pharmacy school and then you enter the industry. Now, how you bridge that gap is up to you, but there are multiple opportunities there, right? Internships, for example. This is a very important, I think often mislooked route of how you can break into industry post-grad. And that is because you are paid less, right? It's an internship. Usually it's a very short amount of time. There's just maybe a free internship, but this is something that, whether you win a fellowship route or an internship route, although you are paid less than your colleagues and your classmates who also graduated and they went to CVS right after pharmacy school, it's worth it in the end because you are using this experience to build your resume, to build your CV, and also to build your expertise.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that we should announce that ACMA is actually going to have a medical affairs fellowship. So stay tuned for more information on that. We are starting our own fellowship as well. Yes. Another question came in, Dr. Dixon, and it says, what are your thoughts to pursue a law degree after being a pharmacist and work as a patent lawyer in the pharma sector?
Yes, I think this is a great idea. Within the pharmaceutical industry, I would say from what I've seen so far already, ACMA, we're often asked to speak as an expert witness in specific cases for pharmaceutical industry issues, right? So they're looking for experts within pharma to act as, again, that subject matter expert in order to build their cases, right? Pharmacy law as well, as a pharmacist, is a great way because those lawyers, when someone is sued, what they're looking at the most are clinical practice guidelines, right? And you're looking at clinical practice guidelines and treatment therapies. Who are they looking for experience? Are pharmacists. So if you have that double experience of being a pharmacist and a lawyer, right, you're getting that 2-for-1 expertise in that realm of pharmacy law.
Definitely. So I think, again, more education, more training, more certificates, more certifications. Again, you're looking to differentiate yourself and help. And I wasn't sure if you guys are aware, but Amazon and Google are actually looking for medical affairs professionals now as well. So the opportunities and the job opportunities are expansive. I think, they're not limited. So they're continuing to change, and there's going to be more and more opportunities for professionals such as yourself.
Yes. And the growth of the pharmaceutical industry is continuously growing with the innovation that we're having, right? All eyes are also on the pharmaceutical industry with changing policies, right? We're discussing drug pricing, these hot topics, these new innovative medications. So as the industry grows, the demand for professionals to help that growth and to sustain that growth is also growing, right? So these opportunities are endless. You probably haven't even thought of Amazon and Google, right? But they are entering this space as well.
So the next question came in about, so this person has 3.5 years in consulting in pharma. They have done drug launch programs, strategy, marketing projects. They're now completing their BCMAS. Do we have practical tips for her and how she can position herself. So, I mean, personally, I think you're well positioned. You have the PhD, you have the consulting. So now on paper, your resume or your CV is going to look, you need to include all of it. Make sure in your LinkedIn profile, you have BCMS candidate. Make sure you're interacting with others. You want to figure out what area. So you talked about drug launch. So that means that you probably have experience, I would say, in different therapeutic areas, which is great. So you want to emphasize that. I would emphasize what areas you're interested in working in. And then really now your CV/resume look good. So now you should focus on hopefully trying to get that position and get the interview, and then move from that. And also I would encourage you to join the LinkedIn network for BCMS professionals. If you're not already in that, since you're already a BCMS student, and I would say join that to network. Networking is key, so you can interact with others. If you have questions on that, let me know as well.
Oh, wow. I see a great question that just came in. How do you think AI would affect medical affairs? Now, I'm assuming you asking this question because you do not know that ACMA, we have an AI product, right? We are becoming an expert. We are actually in office this week to expand and learn more our knowledge on AI within the pharmaceutical industry, how it can shape the pharmaceutical industry. And what we are finding is that within medical affairs, AI saves time. AI drives that strategy that someone mentioned earlier even faster because you're using that time that you're saving from researching, from pooling all of your literature searches and your literature reviews, and using that time more wise manner, right? That further drives the medical affairs strategy. We have plenty of webinars on our website on AI, so I don't want to spend too much time on AI. Keep it more on careers, but I would again check out our website for more resources on AI.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I want to just go back to the person who had all of the credentials, because she said thank you. She's in the LinkedIn group, and I think that's great. And I really want to just make sure that you finish your resume, you finish your CV, and it looks good, and then you're appropriately applying for the positions in the area that you're interested in. And someone else that just put in a request to join as well. Yeah. So the other question that I had too is, what can you do to build your experience? We talked a little bit about this, but what are some things that outside of traditional, like say you're all done with school and you're working, how can you build your expertise? How can you become an expert? And for me, I always say look to social media. So if you don't have a presence on social media on your LinkedIn, I would encourage you to start engaging in conversations that are happening online. So if you have limited time and you're not able to go and present, then I would say, look into that and look into engaging that way. Again, board certifications, internships, freelance work. We've had people reach out to us saying, look, I'm willing to work for free. I'm willing to freelance. I'm willing to write this article. Please let me know. So I think reaching out to people, is fine. I get hundreds probably of messages per month from those individuals who are interested just to build up their CV, build up their resume. And I encourage you to do so. So any work that you can do is important. So I would say offering your knowledge for everyone to, you can help others. And I think that's critical as well.
Yes. Again, offering your knowledge. I think this is key that within the pharmaceutical industry or those looking to break into the industry, they think that others will come to them. While yes, there is a need for professionals within the pharmaceutical industry, this is where that cliche of closed mouths don't get fed comes in, right? You have to do that networking. You have to reach out to others for that expertise, to offer your knowledge and your expertise.
Yeah, definitely. You can author an article, blogs. I think those are great ways to brand your name. You can contact us through ACMA for that as well.
Yes, if you have some level of expertise in a specific therapeutic area or within a functional area of responsibilities within medical affairs or even managed care, reach out to us. We would love to have you as our author. We will interview you, and then we will see your writing skills as well to see, put you out there. When people search your name, they will find you on a reputable website such as ours as an author of a blog.
All right. So this person said they used to work as a principal investigator in clinical trials and now they're continuing to work in clinical studies as a clinical research coordinator. What recommendations do you have for them applying in the industry?
I mean, you're as a clinical research coordinator, you are still technically within the industry, right? We're speaking of healthcare from the beginning of drug development all the way through commercial. So no matter where you are, those skills that you're building as a clinical research coordinator are insights that other pillars within the industry they need and that they are looking for, right? In medical affairs, if you switched over into medical affairs, they are looking for someone with expertise with clinical trials on how they could better shape or tailor their research or clinical research, either with investigator-initiated studies, for example, or increasing diversity for one of their products, right? Again, it's really understanding when you're trying to pivot how to translate those skills that you have in your current role for the role that you are looking for.
All right, great. As we're looking to close out, we'll take one or two more questions and then we're going to close out. But if you do have any questions later, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me or send me an email, and I'll be able to hopefully help you in any questions you have.
I see a question that's in, what is your recommendation about building a resume to make sure it's good enough to get an interview? You know, if you're looking for a specific website or organization, within our BCMAS graduates, our PACS graduates, you can connect you with a mentor or with a recruiter in order to review your resume. If you are still going through the program or you haven't decided if you're going through a board certification, you can do this on your own as well. Again, networking. Look for a mentor on LinkedIn, your desired role, and ask them to take a look at your resume.
Definitely. Yeah. That's important. Again, you don't want typos on it. You don't want to have any issues. You want your resume to be polished and perfect. So yes. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to email or reach out via message.
Yes. Again, our email here at ACMA, if you're looking for more questions or more answers, more resources, our email is info@acmainfo.org. And again, our website is medicalaffairsspecialist.org. We hope to have other LinkedIn Lives as well. Check out our webinars where we dive in more in depth into hot topics within the industry, as well as we go over the responsibilities and the day in the lives of these multiple roles that we've discussed today so far.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.